Hello, everyone. Welcome to this exclusive breakout session on decarbonization and sustainability for the manufacturing and utilities sector. I'm sure you had a very interesting morning plenary, and we are delighted to host you for this breakout session. I am Anumita Bhattacharjee. I am the Global Head of Marketing for the Utilities Business Unit, and I would be the host for today's session. We at TCS believe that ecosystems can drive and empower sustainable choices. And towards that, you have heard many of our leaders and customers talk in the plenary session. Today's session, we will deep dive more on decarbonization and sustainability, which are the two major drivers which are driving the manufacturing and the utilities sector to reimagine their business models. We strongly believe that innovation has a good role to play here. And in the next 1 hour, we're going to take you through some examples of what companies are doing in this space, what is the TCS point of view around it. And we would also have a very interesting panel. And I would now like to introduce our first speaker for today, Sushil Vasudevan, who is the head of manufacturing and utilities for TCS. Sushil, over to you. Really looking forward to an interesting session by you.
Thank you, Anumita. Hello, everyone. The latest IPCC report points to a new reality, that there are changes in the climate in every region and across the whole climate system. Many of the changes observed, such as the continued rise in sea levels, are unprecedented and are irreversible over hundreds to thousands of years. Climate change certainly is one of the planetary boundaries that we have exceeded. However, strong and sustained reductions in emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases would limit the change. The United Nations and the think tanks globally have come up with the Sustainable Development Goals and other standards as a guidance for countries to form a joint force against the climate change and biodiversity change. As a result, we see regulations come across regions which cascades down to businesses that operate and sell from regions. North America, for example, has laid regulations for both carbon neutrality and circularity, which impact the manufacturing and utilities industry significantly. Companies are responding with segment-specific strategies with an objective to decarbonize their extended value chain. Nearly 70% of TCS customers have declared their carbon neutrality goals. From investment perspective, institutional investors today are integrating environmental, social, and governance goals in their decision to manage a climate risk-free portfolio. Sustainably sound products are observed to have a higher market valuation and will help drive a $4 trillion economy for sustainable business models. Sustainability is now a strategic lever for business growth and is not a mere compliance management activity. With multiple business stakeholders interested in sustainability performance, it is important for organizations to consider a comprehensive approach for leading the change. With the vision and goals in place, organizations need to drive the change top-down and bottom-up to make sustainability a core way of doing business. There are three tenets of innovation for sustainability at manufacturing, namely sustainability at the core, sustainable ecosystems, and governance and transparency. For sustainability at the core, a manufacturer needs to revisit their traditional approaches and redesign processes, operations, and products from a sustainability lens. We at TCS are having conversations with our customers who want to bring in sustainability as one of the decision-making factors for procurement. It is important for manufacturers to experiment with alternative materials, encourage cognitive operations to reduce waste, and service customers with a sustainable portfolio to intelligently reduce their business environmental impact. There are two relevant case studies that I would like to highlight. First is the development of a green supply chain management for a UK retailer, whereby they are now able to fulfill deliveries with zero emissions. This was achieved through detailed analysis of their distribution function and redesign of processes that led to reduction in emissions. Second case study is that of NOx reduction for a power generating equipment manufacturer through boiler combustion optimization. TCS developed a digital twin that led to reduction of coal burnt and associated emissions during the process simulation exercise. Let's now look at sustainable ecosystems. As organization boundaries are blurring, purpose-driven ecosystems is the new norm for industries delivering sustainable value to consumers. Extended needs such as recycling and reduced product footprint are the new requirements for customers. Such ecosystems lead to new business models and enhanced revenue generation. Electrification of the auto powertrain is a classic example of sustainable ecosystem formed by auto OEMs, auto component manufacturers, energy infrastructure providers, and utility powering electric vehicles. Multiple new entrants like charging infrastructure providers, lithium-ion battery manufacturers, and joint ventures to ensure adherence to green battery regulations are disrupting the emerging electrification value chain. They are venturing into new business models to deliver sustainable value to customers of the auto industry. Similarly, most of the consumer goods producing giants and packaging users have declared complete shift to use of recycled plastic material. An early move here will position resin manufacturers as preferred suppliers for their customers. Here are two relevant case studies. First is the traceability of supply chain emissions for a chocolate manufacturer, thereby accounting for scope 3 emissions and providing capability for reduction. Second case study is the development of a digital marketplace to enable recycling of used aerospace spare parts for a US equipment manufacturer. Last but not the least is governance and transparency. With multiple business stakeholders using sustainability performance as a decision-making lever for their product choices, investments, and other preferences, organizations need a near real-time visibility. We have worked with manufacturers to develop a clear account of emissions across operations, enabling them to report on their emissions performance and align to their product guidelines. An end-to-end governance capability ensures transparency and provides organizations with the right business insights, thus managing their climate risk exposure effectively. There are two relevant case studies to highlight. First, TCS implemented sustainability performance management reporting and disclosures for a building material manufacturer to have a clear visibility across global units. Second case study is on blueprinting and life cycle assessment for a glass innovator and chemical company in the US. That summarizes the three tenets of innovation for sustainability at manufacturing. The three tenets of innovation apply equally well to utilities. While utilities are bringing innovation in their sustainability journey, the focus is more on new roles and new business models, with consumers often at the center of this journey. You must have heard about companies partnering with their consumers to create a solar plus storage ecosystem and encourage participation in their virtual power plants. For sustainability at the core, TCS is building a digital platform for a leading US utility for renewable performance monitoring and optimization. The company is retiring its aged coal-fired electricity generating units and is adding renewable energy through wind and solar farms. As Europe gears up to become climate neutral, ENGIE plans to empower its customers with smart energy products to monitor and manage their energy and water consumption in real time. Towards this, TCS is building a strong digital foundation for ENGIE. Now let's look at sustainable ecosystems. TCS is partnering with one of the leading Australian utility in building an ecosystem of solar energy generation and storage. It encourages consumer participation in their virtual power plant journey. Similarly, we are building an EV charging ecosystem for an Indian power utility using a digital SaaS platform with our cross-industry IP. For sustainable governance and transparency, TCS has recently partnered with the Australian energy regulator to shift the current 30-minute wholesale electricity spot market settlement period to 5 minutes, thus providing a better price signal to enable more efficient bidding, operational decisions, and investments into future technologies. This is the biggest market reform undertaken in the Australian energy market in recent times. TCS has also implemented a blockchain-based carbon trading platform for a large utility, creating an immutable record of exchange carbon credits. These credits help their business stakeholders and regulators to have a seamless visibility on the performance of the utility. Based on the carbon neutrality commitments by our customers, TCS is co-creating new operating models and capabilities to help customers achieve their vision. First, seamless visibility and accounting of scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Second, data-led insights for effective product lifecycle decisions. Reduce or eliminate process emission spikes from extended ecosystem and deliver sustainable products to consumers. And last, transparent reporting to multiple business stakeholders and global organizations is required for a sustainable brand image. TCS is developing unique assets to help customers jumpstart on this journey. A model plan for computation of emissions, ESG metrics based on data fabric in a manufacturing and utilities operations setup, a unique ESG data universe which is reusable across greenhouse gas standards, analytics and insights model to provide net zero pathways for an organization, scalable lifecycle assessment methodology and partnerships, automated sustainability and ESG reporting services. To sum up, organizations will need the confluence of ecosystems, data, and digital technologies to lay down their roadmap for sustainable business growth. In this journey, TCS itself is a participant as we deploy cutting-edge technologies to achieve our own commitment for carbon neutrality by 2030. TCS Sustainable by Design framework leverages the combinatorial power of digital technologies to build a modern sustainable target operating model which helps the enterprise demonstrate cognitive behavior, enable closed-loop operations along circularity principles with extended value chain partners, and eventually adopt mutually beneficial partnerships focused on sustainability as a purpose. Thank you, and over to Anumita.
Thank you, Sushil, for the excellent presentation. I personally found the case studies very relevant, and I'm sure our audience would relate to it. Going forward, I would like to now introduce Sandeep Bangia, who is the business head of EV charging ecosystem at Tata Power. As I mentioned, he's going to narrate a very interesting story of how his company, along with few of their partners, are laying the foundation of e-mobility ecosystem in India. Over to you, Sandeep.
Hello, everyone, and it's good to be having a conversation with you. Thanks, Anumita, for this opportunity to talk to the TCS friends. So India, as I always say, is at the cusp of an urban mobility revolution, and this revolution comes from a migration from the fossil fuel engines to electric motors and electric drivetrains, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, cars. This is something which we really need to some extent because of pollution reasons. In India, we are host to 7 out of the 10 top most polluting cities in the world. Now, that's not something to be proud of. That's not something to be flaunting. And once this transition is underway, I think this is something that we would want to get rid of these 7 cities list. And I think we're going to get there. The dependency on fossil fuels with a very select few countries is very, very large. Due to the geopolitical reasons, I think we would want to, keep our risks divided, so to speak. and hence we need electric vehicles there. Third, government is very, very keen. We are a signatory as a country to the Paris Agreement, and we are progressing as a country, as a government, or as the number of authorities that are behind this entire evolution to ensure that the Paris Agreement goals are met. Electric mobility is surely a very, very big pillar to get us there. The government is doing what it can. Government is doing a lot of work in terms of the incentivizing, in terms of promoting, in terms of fiscal incentives, non-fiscal incentives, and those are flowing on the ground, and it shows. And finally, I always say this: nobody buys anything just because it is sustainable. The product, which is electric vehicle by itself, is very, very good vehicle, very good to drive, very good, very low cost to maintain. I would say an extreme thrill to drive. No voice, no noise. Fully automatic. Number of parts are less, so the maintenance is less. I think. Apart from the reason of being sustainable, I think this is also having all the other reasons that you should buy an electric vehicle. So these are the 3 or 4 reasons why I think India is adopting electric vehicles in a very, very big manner. Right. So we talked about why and how India is moving towards electric mobility. Now let me just talk about my company, my group, as to how and why we are adopting electric mobility as a very core part of our sustainable initiatives within the group, within the company. Tata Group, as you know, is a very, very large conglomerate. We call it salt to software. Chosen 5 entities within the group are working towards making this electric revolution happen. Those 5 companies are very, very clearly Tata Motors, which is making cars, electric cars, Tata Power, which is enabling this ecosystem through putting up charging infrastructure for the vehicles that are coming into the country. Third, Tata Chemicals, which is into battery chemistries, and they are working towards making batteries for the vehicles. Fourth is Tata Auto Component, which is a company which is into making charging hardware and other components for electric vehicles, not just for the Tata Group, but also for the other manufacturers, and quite like a lot of other companies. And fifth is, the retail group, which is host to a lot of our chargers, in which the group demonstrates its cars through an experience zone, and makes the experience one notch above for the customers when they want to experience an electric vehicle. That is the place that they have to go to. Of course, apart from that, we are hosting a lot of our chargers in those locations. This was a logical extension of what we always do. We do everything we are the largest power utility in the country, and we are in this, it's fully integrated. We are right now, from generation, transmission, distribution, renewables, solar, the entire thing. So it was only very logical for us to get into EV charging. And I'm happy to share that today we have announced the installation of the 1,000th charging point in the country. The largest in terms of numbers, the largest in terms of spread, and the largest in terms of the range of activities that we do. Like we are into home charging, so if you buy a electric car, we are the people who come and install chargers at your home. We are into destination charging, which is you go to a mall or you go to an office complex, you go to a residential society, we install chargers there. That's the destination locations. We install fast chargers along highways, and then we are into ultra rapid chargers, which are for buses. So we span everything from home charging to buses, from 3.5 kilowatt, 7.5 kilowatt, 25, 50, and then right up to 240. So this is the span that we are covering, and we are very happy about that. The big thing that we are talking about here is that this is also across a public charging network, a captive charging network, as well as a semi-public. So if there is a charging which is there in my residential association or my residential community, it is accessible only to me, and hence this is a semi-public location. It is accessible to me, but it is not accessible to some of you, for example. So now I'll just talk about how we are doing what we are doing. I just told you about how India is doing what it is doing, how we are moving very fast towards electric mobility, how the group is committed, how Tata Power as a part of the group is committed, uh, the kind of things that we are doing, the 1,000 charger. And now I'm going to just tell you about what are the key components, some challenges, and just to share some of those. Number one is the hardware, the charger itself. That is something which either we actually procure from outside. We are into charge point operations, which is service. So we procure the charger, the first hardware. Second is the domain expertise, which is electrical domain. Now, a charger of 240 kilowatt capacities or 50 kilowatt capacities is something. I mean, 50 kilowatt capacity is almost 10 to 12 apartments. The kind of power that is getting handled. So I guess it's not something which is a simple electrician's or a simple, a contractor's job. It requires a lot of domain expertise to make things happen. Uh, Secondly, the more number of vehicles as they come, there is a lot of work that is going behind the charger, which is the electrical domain. When I say the grid balancing, the grid control, anybody qualified to do the electrical domain work, I think Tata Power people are possibly the best, not just in India, possibly the best in the world, to be able to manage such complications if at all they arise on the grid. And so that takes a bit of expertise, and I'm being a bit modest when I say that. It does require a good amount of expertise. And the third thing which I always say is sitting on the top of the hardware is the digital platform. To us, that digital platform is a big differentiator. That digital platform which our friends at TCS are making for us is a platform that is not just cutting edge made for the Indian environment. I think that's something which we are making it for the world. Uh, this is absolutely customized for an Indian situation where the volume of transactions and the robustness of transactions is is clearly manifested by the total volume game that in India, everything to do with India is uh, large volumes, customized features, and more intuitive features. Indian payment systems are possibly the best in the world, whether it is UPI, whether it is authenticated password mechanism or OTP mechanism. So we have got this absolutely stunning digital platform which does the job for us, and we believe that is likely to be the differentiator. That digital platform enables the customer side to have a dashboard and analysis and all kinds of things that he would want to do for his business, as well as it enables us to run our business. And to the customer, it just looks like a mobile application which makes the life of the customer simple by just going across to the charger, plugging the charger to the car or the scooter, and plugging on the power so that the power comes into the vehicle, and when he switches it off, the money gets debited from his account. And this has to happen time and again, every time, with no exceptions. So I think this is where we really excel: electrical domain expertise and the digital platform that we are making for the world. Now, that is going to be the big enabler, and we are working hard towards this piece. And finally, I always say the one which is, this is charging business is not about I can do it. It is the entire ecosystem that can make it work. And this is the third C, which is the collaborativeness. The charge point operator, the platform partner, the hardware maker, the car maker, the government agency, the discom, the location host. I think all of these people have to collaborate and come together to make things happen. And once this clicks, well, I think there is magic happening. Future is bright, future is electric. Thank you so much, Anumita and the TCS team. Thank you so much for giving me a hearing.
Thanks, Sandeep, for the insightful session. And I would again like to request our audience to please type in their questions on the chat window, and we would certainly respond back to you offline. I would now like to move on to the panel session. We have a very interesting topic for today. How are the manufacturing and utilities organizations reimagining their business models to meet the aggressive net zero goals? I would like to invite Kevin Prouty, who is the Group Vice President of Energy and Manufacturing Insights for IDC, and who is our moderator for today's session. Over to you, Kevin.
Well, thank you, Anumita. I very much appreciate it. And I'd like to welcome you all to this really great panel we put together. I really want to thank TCS for getting all the attendees organized and getting us together in a room. And we've had some conversations that were really good. And, you know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ask one general question. And instead of me going through and introducing everyone, I'm going to let each panelist, we have a great panel of very smart, very knowledgeable and experienced people here to talk about sustainability. And I'm going to go through a very short presentation just to kind of lay the groundwork for sustainability in both utilities and manufacturing. And then I'll ask the panelists to introduce themselves and answer the first question. So with that said, let's just quickly jump into what we see at IDC. You know, we see a very broad view of how companies operate, especially in manufacturing and industries. And so one of the things that's interesting is coming out of the pandemic, or, you know, we're still kind of at the tail end of the pandemic, the impact we've seen on people's focus on sustainability. We did a very large survey in the middle of last year, and it really hasn't changed that much. We just did another one recently. I haven't got the data yet, but I know that very similar to this, well over half, close to 2/3 of our clients and the people that fill out this survey, their focus has really changed significantly on sustainability, both at a couple different levels, at the reporting ESG level and at the actual execution level. So that shows you that sustainability is a very, very strong topic for manufacturing and utilities. We actually have a sustainability, what we call profitable sustainability index. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on it. I believe TCS is going to send this PowerPoint around, and you can look at the details. But really, the point I want to make is there are companies that have been very focused on sustainability, and they're digital, and they've had a much better impact on their profits than companies that have been less focused on sustainability and digital. As you can see here, companies that are highly invested in sustainability while still being digital have a much better chance and a much better position on the index chart for sustainability and their performance around profits. And you can, you know, there's some ifs, ands, or buts around there, but in general, those companies investing in sustainability and cutting waste are doing much better from a profit perspective. So let's talk about what the governance model is for sustainability. Before we jump into the panel here, really I see two general sustainability models. One is what I call the top-down approach, very focused on reporting, very focused on a shareholder view of sustainability and the market view of sustainability. The other one is more of what I call grassroots sustainability. And that is, you have your employees very heavily focused on waste, energy management, wastewater management, just waste of materials in general. And the best organizations we have found are ones that have both of those. They have the top-down push and they have that grassroots push, and they're linked together in the middle. And so with that, what I'd like to do is just have a quick discussion with our panelists and really, you know, start to focus on what are these companies doing, and you know, some perspective from them on how they approach sustainability. So I'm going to ask a question, and what I'd like Kevin Johansson from NiSource to give his perspective, and then I'm going to walk through each of the panelists. Can you just give us your views on your sustainability journey in your organization? You know, what are the challenges and the opportunities? What are the business model changes you've had to go through at your organization?
So just quick intro, my name is Kevin Johansson, and I'm the Vice President of Application Services at NiSource. And a little background on NiSource. NiSource is one of the largest fully regulated utilities, serving approximately 3.5 million natural gas customers and 500,000 electric customers across the Midwest and Atlantic seaboard. NiSource is pursuing one of the fastest and deepest decarbonization plans in the United States. Our strategic framework that we call Your Energy, Your Future really focuses and ensures that the work we're doing to satisfy future energy needs provides financial, economic, social, and environmental benefits to all stakeholders involved. Our sustainability journey, it's all about people, communities, employees that are involved. And we all know there's a significant energy transition underway. And we see exciting opportunities in the way energy is produced, delivered, how it's used, and how those opportunities can benefit communities, employees, and the company simultaneously as we move towards a sustainable energy future. So in our view, people must be at the center of any effort aimed at shifting to a greener, more sustainable energy supply. At the same time, we also acknowledge it's an incredibly complex shift to renewable sources, and we must balance multiple factors, including reliability, affordability, resilience, and the environmental impact. That means as we bring on renewables like wind, solar, and other sources are brought into the environment to reduce the environmental impact, we must continue to deliver customers access to reliable, resilient supply of energy at an affordable cost. This is why we also believe natural gas is such an important part of the energy mix. And Kevin, as you noted, business models will absolutely evolve, and we believe utilities, as energy delivery experts, are well positioned to be at the forefront of that change.
Oh, that's perfect. Manasi, can you tell us what you see your clients and customers doing?
Thanks, Kevin. Hi, I'm Mansi Agarwal, joining in from TCS. I've close to 20 years of experience in this field of sustainability and climate change, bringing in multiple aspects, right from a user perspective, wherein I dealt with reporting and other aspects of sustainable development, whereas consulting clients all through my years of experience. Now, thanks, Kevin, for this question. What I feel is, largely if you look at the sustainable goals that have been set by organizations, and I'm bringing in a view from manufacturing perspective, particularly, you would see the net zero goals, and you would also see goals which are coming in from a circular economy perspective, wherein clients are looking at reducing waste accumulation at large. Now, having said that, when it kind of starts boiling down, there are a lot of vision talk about goals that have been set at a company's level. And most of it has kind of cascaded down to them from regional goals and vision and sustainability. Whereas the challenge right now, I think where the clients are looking at now is the space around bringing in a tactical roadmap in place, understanding what their journey would look like in order to achieve those goals and vision of theirs. And that's mostly the crux of conversations that we are having with our clients as well, in order to bringing in, as you rightly put in, the top-down and the bottom-up approaches together, and to see that how a holistic journey can be crafted out for themselves. However, the opportunity is huge. And I would say particularly from a business model change perspective, and as Kevin from NiSource rightly put it through as well, it's kind of re-looking at your existing business model, at your existing portfolio, and completely transforming it. Because at the end of the day, companies are looking at providing a sustainable portfolio to their consumers now. It's about impacting their own consumers' net zero goals, right? And particularly with a manufacturing and utility setup, we're kind of working in a B2B model. They're kind of governed largely with how their own customers look at sustainability at this point of time. I want to bring in an example from a plastics manufacturer whom we were working with in the region of US. And largely our discussions were based on the fact that how can they remain as the supplier of choice for their customers. Now, these are customers who are using their plastic material for their packaging needs. And they themselves have put forth a lot of goals around reusing plastic materials or putting in a large portion of their packaging as recycled plastic. And that's where they start looking at such plastic manufacturers to see how they can actually step up that pedal in terms of providing them that material.
That's good. That's a good example too. So Vikas from LyondellBasell, you want to give us your perspective?
Thanks, Kevin. Do a quick introduction. I'm Vikas Parikh. I lead our global enterprise architecture, and I also lead product teams, IT product teams supporting finance and recently formed sustainability product team as well. And I'll go a little bit talk about Lyondell, but before I do that, I have a personal plea to everyone who is listening. I use these kind of platforms to spread the word, because I think that's one thing we all need to work on. And I'll start with a quote. The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. Very well said by Robert Swan. I think the greatest threat is not to our planet, it's to humankind. Planet is still going to exist in whatever shape or form, right? And I'll throw a few stats as we go through this next 20-25 minutes. Two interesting stats that I really, am baffled by. 65% of our energy production is waste. 50% of food is waste. There's a lot that individually we all can do, right? So I'm looking forward to this conversation, and you all got my personal plea. Spread the word. This is very important for us. LyondellBasell is a global organization. So we are a $40 billion plastics, chemical, and refining organization. 100 manufacturing plants all over the world. 20,000+ employees, and we are in the thick of this. The way we have designed or defined our sustainability program is we look at it around 5 pillars that are divided. The 3 big pillars that we think about: plastic waste, climate change, and then thriving society. And then within those 3 big global challenges, we have divided into 5 pillars. The 5 pillars, the first 2 pillars are around plastic waste. Is how do we end plastic waste in the environment? And how do we use this as an opportunity for our organization to advance the circular economy? It's been very linear and there's a lot of focus on circularity, but there are tremendous challenges ahead of us. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Under the climate change pillar, we look at it under challenge, we look at it as 2 pillars. One is address climate change, and then grow sustainable solutions. And we'll talk about this as we go further. And then thriving society, how do we enhance our workplace operations and communities? It's all about people, right? And the way we have aligned our program is it's very relevant to the 17 SDG goals from UN. We have picked 9 very strategically that apply to our space where we can make the biggest impact. And we have solid metrics that are tracking against each of those 9 goals linked to the UN SDG. I always believe in what is the baseline, what is the metric, so that we can show progress and move from there, right? So that is how we at Lyondell think about sustainability. And as I mentioned recently, we formed a dedicated IT organization that I am leading that is going to support all our sustainability initiatives across the organization. So this pillar is going to bring technology together and data together to make things happen at Lyondell. So looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, that's good. It's good to have that, to hear that about that. We're part of the organization that cuts across all your silos and tries to manage that sustainability message. Devarupa, you want to just give us your perspective from the TCS side around the utility practice?
Thank you, Kevin. So I absolutely echo what some of my colleagues and in TCS and also Kevin and Vikas you spoke about. Uh, my introduction, my name is Debarupa Das. I lead TCS's electric vehicle and battery business globally. And sustainability has really been the main driver for us focusing on this area strategically. And what I'm seeing globally is a very ecosystem of evolving business models where multiple actors, it's just not utilities or manufacturing companies or, the traditional boundaries are merging more and more in order to support the sustainability goals and in order to ensure that, all the key parameters of a sustainable, or a sustainable future is being pursued in the right manner. And in fact, transportation and in electrification is just at the tip of the iceberg, really. I would like to, in fact, ask Kevin and later Vikas also, what are some of the clean energy policies and, that you have undertaken? You are seeing hopefully a very decarbonized and distributed ecosystem evolving, especially in the North America. Do you, want to share some more perspective on that, what you are seeing?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to that. By the way, I'm the one who asks questions, not you. I'm just kidding. We'll get to that question. I think what I'd like to do is turn to Vikas and Manasi again, and just, when you think of the stringency around reducing life cycle impact of plastics in your products, along with carbon emissions, how is LYB, how are you dealing with those requirements? And where do you see the biggest opportunities in your process that impact the waste and the emissions?
We are very focused on renewable. It was very interesting for me to find out, Catherine Hayhoe is a very renowned climate scientist, and along with her, Elon Musk, the two of them did calculation, and they came up with, to support the entire US electricity consumption, we need an area of 120 by 120 square miles for solar panels. Sounds so easy, right? But it's not, we all know. It's all about storage, it's all about transportation, there are all these challenges that we are going through. So, but I always like to think about it in terms of numbers and what are the big challenges versus what some of them may not be. At LYB, we have a personal goal of we want to get 50% of our energy from renewable by 2030. That is a target that we have set, and we hope that we exceed that target. That is one way. Within our operations, we continue to look at how do we minimize flares. That's a big component. How do we use lower emitting fuels? How do we process electrification and furnace upgrades, right? So what we have done is we have identified areas within our operations that could benefit the most, right, and which are higher emission processes as well. So that is one way of looking at internally on how we can improve our own footprint. So that is some of that. Along with that, we are also looking at cracker electrification. We're looking at hydrogen. Everybody's talking about hydrogen, so that's another big technology that we are looking at. And then another one is CCUS, which is climate change control, the capture, carbon capture, utilization and storage. So we continue to monitor these technologies and keep a very close eye on how we can benefit and how can we use those in our existing processes.
I think those specific examples are good. So Manasi, when you hear someone like Vikas talking about the stuff they're working on, From TCS's perspective, how do you work with companies like LYB, and how do you support them in their goals?
I would want to extend Vikas' thoughts here. So largely till date, we've seen kind of clients looking at their scope 1 and their scope 2 emissions. When we say scope 1, it's all emissions that happen within their battery limits. So meaning all activities that companies have a control on and they're leading to emissions falls within scope 1. Scope 2 relates to the emissions that happens in an utility while generating the portioned amount of energy any company uses. Now, the time has come when clients have started extending their scope related to emissions. They've started looking at upstream and the downstream emissions, which are termed as largely scope 3. And that will kind of look at, your raw material sources, the emissions that happen on that side, the logistics, the distribution, the entire distribution component of your value chain, and even the use phase emissions. They're just calling out an example from a completely different industry, but the analogy is quite applicable to all industries across manufacturing and utilities. The entire electrification drive, which Devarupa hinted at. Now, if you look at that, research does say that if renewable energy is used in the use phase of electric vehicles, you kind of completely net off not just the emissions that have happened at the manufacturing floor of the electric vehicle, but also you deem it a completely, a sustainable product by far than the current traditional product substitute that you have on the ground. Now, having said that, across different industry segments, the new term, it's not a new term, but the new philosophy is around life cycle emissions of a product. And that kind of looks at even the source, the distribution, the use phase emissions, apart from the manufacturing and the scope 2 emissions that have happened. Now, across industry segments, be it an industrial manufacturer, like a machinery manufacturer, be it a chemical manufacturer, be it an auto component manufacturer, most of our discussions with clients are moving that way. And that's kind of percolating down to them from regulations, from their customer ask, from their ask coming in from the investor side as well. And it's kind of not kind of an annual, function that needs to be taken care of. It's kind of a sporadic, an ask that's coming to them from every corner at a frequency that's kind of not decided and cannot be predefined. So I think that's a very big change that's happening across the industry.
Just to take this one step further and throw another stat, and how important scope 3 and controlling that is. 90 organizations globally control 70% of the GHG emission.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? There are organizations who are not in the 90, they feel responsible, and the only way they can control is work through their partners, work through their suppliers, work through their supply chain, and put the pressure upstream.
Exactly.
Right.
So
that's a very important point where organizations who may not have direct control to make a larger impact have to start thinking about this.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think it actually brings me to a question I have for Kevin from NiSource. When you think about how the market's changing for your product, which is energy, how do you work with your customers? What do you do to help them down this journey to sustainability?
Let me double click a little bit in kind of your energy, your future, and what it is and what it means, because I think it starts to set the tone. But you heard me say, NiSource is pursuing one of the fastest and deepest decarbonization plans in the U.S. We're already on course for a 90% greenhouse gas emission reduction by 2030. And included in that is a 50% reduction in methane emissions from our gas business by 2025. And these aren't just goals that we put out there for some point in the future with, without plans to achieve. We've got clear visibility into achieving these goals, and we're well on our way to implement these plans. But I think more importantly there to get your question on what that means to customers, right? It's about what's important to our customers, our customers, our stakeholders, and customers have different needs and different aspects. Some is affordability, right? For some of our, we were talking about some stats. 15% of our customers live below the standard federal poverty line, right? So it's incredibly important, right, that we are taking care of the affordability aspect, right? Our customers also consider and are concerned about resilience, right? They want to know that their energy is going to be delivered when they need it. Right. Think about any other type of product or service that you use where literally you can go, flip on a switch and it's there when you need it, right? And that's what we deliver. That's what we're able to serve, whether it be electric or from a natural gas standpoint. So we partner with our customers and our stakeholders to understand what their needs are. How do we balance that across that wide portfolio, right, of stakeholders that are involved, and develop programs that are important to them, right? Whether it be looking at what they can do within their home or business to drive better efficiencies and from a cost perspective as well. Or help them shift to different types of models that will work best for their business, right? If we're talking about industrial organizations as an example. So it's all about partnership, and it's all about looking at what's going to meet that stakeholder group the best.
I think that's a really good point, and I think that customer connection. I always talk about this with utilities, and we'll get to Devrupa in a minute. When we talk about utilities and sustainability, I think a lot of times we miss the point that utilities are one of the few organizations that meet the entire strata of our society, from the poorest person to the richest person. And they can't have a blanket policy, generally speaking, that doesn't take into account at least part of that strata. Now, I'm going to flip the question over to Devrupa. I think there is an aspect of this that I'd like to hear from you about, especially when we come to electrification of transportation and discussion around batteries and the infrastructure needed for all that. I'd like to get your perspective, listening to what Kevin has said, listening to what Vikas and Manasi about how that their part of the market's changing. What do you see as some of the key parts as that electrification's happening for transportation? How does it impact what you think they're trying to do?
Unlike just kind of addressing the topic of electrification in silo, what I'm seeing is an overall sustainable drive right from well to will, which is, when literally the lithium is mined for the batteries, right up to, you have your batteries manufactured, then to, your vehicle, setting up, your manufacturing drive lines and getting the vehicles out, up to then a smooth, renewable fed infrastructure, charging infrastructure, which is sustainable as well. And then eventually with the grid, you have the whole set of, V2X related aspects like, vehicle supplying as a source of energy to the grid, which in a very seamless way connects the entire ecosystem. And there is a tremendous focus at each and every point in this value chain for being sustainable. Why I'm saying this is because over the last, I would say, a year or so, I'm seeing there is a huge focus on battery gigafactories and locally sourcing batteries instead of, there has been traditionally a huge dependence on Asia. So each and every geography, including North America, very significantly, the likes of, say, Lion Energy in Canada or Tesla in the US, you will find that they're focusing significantly in manufacturing batteries, which are almost 80 to 90% recyclable. And then there is a whole host of, industries and startups which are coming up, which focus even on the second life usage, whatever little that is still there on that battery life on that, which are all adding up to the broader sustainability goals. Now, coming to charging infrastructure, we are seeing a sudden proliferation of charging infrastructure, especially in North America, coming from the government as well as the transportation departments and very significant utilities, by the regulators. Now, one interesting thing to note here is what I'm seeing, with my customers is that instead of linearly expanding the capacity, I'm seeing a huge effort in how you could potentially orchestrate your DERs, your VPPs, virtual power plants, distributed energy sources, so that you're able to square off this, expanding demand, which are excellent, mechanism in order to remain sustainable and also expand and support a clean transportation ecosystem.
I think that's really good. And I think what the discussion from the four panelists, what it does is it reinforces that this is not a siloed problem. There is the energy producers, the energy consumers on both the industrial and the commercial side are in this together. I even look inside companies. Sustainability is one of the few issues where the grassroots of an organization and the senior management and leaders of the organization and the shareholders of the organization are all kind of pulling in the same direction, generally speaking. But I also think it's interesting to talk about, some of the concepts that keep coming up, and that is the circular economy. What happens with batteries when you're done with them? That if you can have sustainable power generation for the vehicle and for the vehicle manufacturing, you are now at a real net zero capability. So I think it's really good to hear this coming from all different sides. I also think it's really interesting to listen to Vikas talk about how a large chemical company, $40 billion global, is putting this layer over the top of all their sustainable operations to kind of keep track of it and make sure the right technology is applied to it, that the reporting is done properly. I think that in many ways is many times that's the missing ingredient in large companies when they're looking at sustainability and how they're managing it. So again, Kevin, Vikas, Dabrupa, Manasi, I want to thank you for bringing your insights to this. It's really helped clarify a lot of what I'm sure our audience and what I want to know about sustainability. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Anumita, and we'll finish up the show. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin, for hosting the panel today. And thanks to all the panelists for bringing in such varied dimensions into this topic. I'm sure the audience found it valuable. With this, we move to the concluding session of our breakout today. And I would like to invite our speaker, Babu Unnikrishnan, who is the CTO for Manufacturing and Utilities in TCS. Unni is responsible for technology leadership and digital advisory services. He directs technology research and innovation for the business group. Unni, welcome to today's session, and looking forward to your session. Over to you.
Thanks, Anumita, and good morning, good evening to all of you. As you all would relate to, sustainability is a topic of profound impact for both manufacturing and utilities. While it's still evolving, it has pretty much become a topic of discussion right from the shop floor all the way to the boardroom. Most of the strategic and forward-looking initiatives are underpinned by sustainability goals and targets as we look ahead. You already heard Sushil referring to sustainability by design and the three key tenets: sustainability at the core, the sustainable ecosystems, and the governance and transparency, as we are shaping up this journey with many of our customers. You also heard from our highly qualified panel on how our customers and partners are focusing on the significant initiative and revisiting and reimagining at times their own core processes, technologies, and business models towards net zero goals. We also see some very distinct thinking shaping up here as well. Say, for instance, in the context of manufacturing, while each sub-industry is shaping up their own tailored plans, one common thread that's coming out is the shifting focus from the traditional linear model of thinking to a circularity thinking. Similarly, on the utility side, while there's a significant focus on expanding into renewables, the focus is not limited just to the direct or scope 1 emissions. The focus is also in terms of upstream and downstream emissions as well. Carbon footprint in terms of energy purchase and trading, energy portfolio management, etc. In a nutshell, what we're seeing is a slow and steady alignment across the value chain under the broad umbrella of what I would call a sustainability by design practices. Multiple initiatives are intending to converge here and contribute. That said, it's important to recognize that there's a strong need to translate these intents into a set of pragmatic actions and capabilities. Alongside structural changes are inevitable in this journey, and so the shift towards innovative business and operating models. Given this, we believe a convergence of core and emerging technologies will be a key enabler in terms of stewarding and accelerating the journey. While there are several focus areas and associated initiatives one could think of, we have identified 5 focus areas where we believe technology could play a vital role. Let me spend some time on each one of these focus areas and the associated technologies to enable. First and foremost, we believe it's important to baseline. You've got to bring more data-driven visibility and transparency into the mix. For example, digital track and trace and life cycle assessment to identify the priorities, identify the hotspots, and also the benchmarking, complemented by establishing a purpose-driven data fabric for data capture, lineage, and association, advanced visualization and dashboards for regulatory reporting needs as well. New data-driven methods like knowledge graphs to provide more near real-time traversal capabilities for improved reasoning and also identifying the next best actions and interventions. The second aspect is around to infuse more digital into core operations and design. This is not something new, it's been on for a while, but there's a need to a sustained effort to further improve the IT-OT integration for informed decision making. Digital twin-driven predictive maintenance for overall equipment efficiencies, digital FME analysis for improved safety, and even new techniques like unobtrusive sensing or sensing from a distance for reducing energy wastage during out-of-production hours. In the utility context, asset inspection for accurate anomaly detection, significant digitalization in that space for improved situational awareness and worker safety, empowering the field force with additional digital tools to transition from the traditional compliance-focused inspection to a more risk-informed approach. Of course, on digital R&D, leveraging technology-driven product design capabilities and compute-intensive in silico analysis. Third one is in terms of ecosystems, and more so from a purpose-driven ecosystem that extend beyond the organizational industry boundaries to bring in more a collaborative impact, a force multiplier effect, primarily driven by open API and open data platform capabilities to co-create solutions. For example, smart city ecosystem underpinned by a scalable data platform, V2X technologies, and a real-time emergency response solutions. Another one would be the EV ecosystem to extend beyond charging solutions to a more networked customer experience. New business models are also coming into work in terms of recycle marketplaces to encourage safe disposal, collection, and recycling of plastic across the value chain participants. The fourth focus area I would think would be on the transition to new energy sources, which is also posing a significant cost and technology challenges to both utilities and C&I customers. For utilities, some of the key technology interventions would include enabling a robust DER management platform to promote and manage distributed source of energies, a virtual power plant capability to serve as a network of producers, consumers, and storage, and even real-time situational awareness and decision-making capabilities by converging multiple technologies together. Management of energy storage solution, very important one that's really picking up traction here. For instance, battery digital twin for health monitoring, for state of charge, state of health, remaining useful life, etc. kind of capabilities. New business models like bring your own battery for consumers and grid-scale battery solution and V2G technologies in the commercial space. Well, all of the above are in terms of the benefits from a technology intervention. Technology can also be a distracting inhibitor. Green compute in that context is a slowly evolving and interesting proposition out there. As we all know, significant proliferation of data and an ever-growing set of newer technologies, especially at the intersection of AI-based technologies, are resulting in complex computing needs and associated significant energy consumption and heat generation. It is imperative that we bring in an energy-aware and thermal-aware compute environment. Compute optimization and sustainable coding are two pillars that we believe are in this direction, will be an important part of this journey. For instance, AI performance management, including end-to-end AI lifecycle management, machine learning ops capability, model-driven development, and hybrid workloads across core and edge for compute segmentation are all important levers and interventions in this direction. So that's pretty much a quick view on some of the technology interventions that we believe would pan out as we go through this long haul of sustainability journey. Given all of these that I just referred to, we continue at an organization level, we continue to invest in many of these focus areas. We look at this in terms of three key capabilities: our investments in IP-driven assets and frameworks, investments in foundational research and emerging technologies that can complement, and of course, our co-innovation partner ecosystem, including academic institutions and tech startups. We are co-creating capabilities here. You would see some of these in the chart as well. For instance, Clever Energy, which is an energy and emission management platform with real-time energy monitoring, anomaly detection, and actionable insight recommendation, has been deployed for multiple customers of ours, have achieved energy savings up to 10% at a plant level on an annual basis. The solution analyzes close to 150 odd data points in real-time mode to detect anomalies and generate actionable recommendations. Intelligent Urban Exchange, IUX, is another one that's more tuned towards smart city-related initiatives. The platform is underpinned by a city data platform, city command center, integrated operational dashboard, and emergency response solutions. We've implemented this solution covering transportation, smart lighting and parking, energy management for a leading city in the Middle East to improve the overall citizen experience. We're also further extending on this platform, adding additional capabilities like well-to-wheel carbon emission analytics for EV value chain. Similarly, there are other capabilities that we're co-creating and at different levels of maturity. Along with this, we're also working on multiple research topics with our co-innovation partners like Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Fraunhofer in Germany, and a series of premier institutes in India. This relates to advanced topics like AI-driven formulation design, waste management through microbiome remediation, and even new battery technologies extending beyond the traditional lithium-ion battery into solid-state and liquid metal battery capabilities. And many more that we are ideating and working along with our partners. I'd like to close in by saying that from a technology standpoint, we need to have two schools of approaches converging here, and they converge rather rapidly as well. One in terms of extending existing capabilities and core technologies, and the other one in terms of new capabilities through emerging technologies and research. We need both of these to come together, coexist in the long haul to reap the benefits. On a lighter note, I would say we need both marathon runners and sprinters together in this exciting journey that's ahead in front of us. With that, let me close in on and hand it over back to Anumita. Thank you.
Thanks, Unmi, for the insights. And truly, whatever you shared will inspire our audience to leverage technology and innovation in their sustainability journey. So thank you very much. With this, we come to the end of today's session. And I would like to thank all our speakers and panelists for sharing their varied views on this topic. I would also like to thank the audience for the patient hearing and the engaging conversations on the chat window. So once again, thank you very much. It was a delight to host all of you today for this virtual Innovation Forum breakout session. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did hosting you. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Stay connected and stay safe.